It takes a special kind of genius to be able to evoke truly strong emotions in a jaded audience without falling into cringe. Hello, my wonderful viewers, and welcome to another episode of Betty Adams Overanalyzes. Today, we are going to take a fully spoilery look at Kaiju number 8, chapter 97. There are some stories that leave a striking image in your mind. There are some stories that have you recalling a particular conversation, and there are some stories that leave you with only a strong emotional experience. This is kind of a variation on the old concept that people might remember what you said. They may remember what you did, but they're definitely going to remember how you made them feel. This chapter was on the surface a very classic shonen combat chapter. The art was well up to Matsumoto's always high standards. However, the art is not the thing that stuck with me this chapter. It was instead the emotional roller coaster that you go through. First, there is a gut punch of an adrenaline rush, then a sense of growing doom, then a bone-deep sense of weariness and helplessness, coupled with the sense you get when you are ready to drop, but you still have half the week of work ahead of you. Then, fierce determination, and finally growing frustration and horror. So, we're going to get into the spoilers now. You have been warned. If you want to click away, you can go check out the links below the video to get your hands on a copy of Humans Are Weird, I Have the Data, a collection of short, absurd science fiction stories told from the perspective of aliens after the shock of first contact wears off. But now, back to the story. So, like I said, in concept, this is a very simple chapter and nothing story-wise really happens. So what Matsumoto does is take one of the darkest shadows overhanging the psyche of Japan and pour it into the chapter. What does that mean? First off, we focus on the slowly dawning horror in Mina as she realizes that she is facing down a giant-type kaiju, which is usually in her wheelhouse, but one that can move like lightning despite its size, taking it completely out of her skill range. Then we watch the reactions of the already spent Defense Force officers as they try to move to her aid and realize one after another that they can't move, let alone support Mina. Then we see Kafka, the only one who's still at full energy, transform and go tearing off towards her, only to be countered with the giant white kaiju appearing in the sky and falling to Earth to start carpet bombing the city. These are specifically designed to keep him away from Mina, as Kaiju number 9 flat out says. So, this chapter was all setup and conclusion, but nothing really happens. But we, as the reader, felt several important beats. What we responded to was the intense emotional reactions of the various Defense Force officers of this military, something that is important to us because Matsumoto has made us care about them with dozens of chapters of character development. Jin, who has defined himself by proving himself worthy of Aiso Shinamaya's time and energy, Kokoru, who we have watched mature from a child to still dependent on her parents, to a woman with connections to the community around her, Mina, who had to forge ahead with her support and who was finally founded again, and most of all, Kafka, who felt so powerless and out of control at the beginning of the series, and who now knows that he does have power to finally keep his promise to Mina, to be there by her side and protect her. But at what cost will Kafka be able to fulfill his promise? It was clear that those kaiju weren't attacking number 8 directly. Rather, they were attacking the city. They were carpet bombing the city. Now, let's take a deep breath and talk about something very, very serious, something very, very real, something that looms over the psyche in Japan in a way that it doesn't in the United States or Canada, but probably does in London and Berlin. There are still many people alive in Japan today who would recognize this scene. People from London who would recognize this scene. People from Berlin who would recognize this scene. From Stalingrad. This is something that we don't really understand in the cities in North America. This is something that will only be in the zeitgeist of a city that has lived through being carpet bombed. There are people alive today in Japan who were the soldiers tasked with defending Japan, who had to stand there helpless as wave after wave of B-29 superfortresses dropped firebombs over every manufacturing industrial center. The goal was to destroy Japan's ability to produce weapons of war, to destroy Japan's ability to defend itself. Up until this time, up until the B-29 started flying, no plane had the range or carrying capacity to be a threat to Japan. The Navy, the Japanese Navy, could keep the aircraft carriers far enough out that no bomber had any chance of reaching the islands. And on the other side, they had the entire landmass of China and Russia between them. The B-29 was very specifically designed for this mission, to fly far, to fly high, to drop unthinkable levels of death. The B-29 was specifically designed to get around Japan's biggest defense. And this image, this is still very much a part of the Japanese zeitgeist. And there is no question in my mind that this image is the image that Matsumoto is calling on here. You look up, a massive wave of enemies appears in the sky where you thought there could be no enemies. And then they begin raining destruction down on the city, leaving the city scrambling to defend itself from this unexpected, unthinkable destruction, even as it engages the enemy on the ground. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Matsumoto knows his audience and their memories. The memes, the images that lives in the head of his audience are as much Matsumoto's canvas as the paper that he inks. And I'm curious whether this manga will stand the test of time, because are these universal things that Matsumoto is touching on? Or are they temporally specific? Are they specific to a time, an era, a generation? Only time will tell. But getting back to the story, Kafka is left with a choice. He can almost certainly dodge these massive slow-moving kaiju and get to Mina in time to stand by her side and defend her from Kaiju number 9. But that would mean leaving the city to its fate with the giant kaiju. He could end those giant kaiju and let Mina be captured, not only his losing his friend and failing her again, but giving Kaiju number 9 yet another powerful weapon and a better understanding of the defense force as it stands to add to his arsenal. Now, this is sort of setting up to be a pretty tough choice, but if this is the choice he faces in the next chapter, the answer is actually pretty clear. Keeping Mina and the power and knowledge that she represents out of the hands of Kaiju number 9 is obviously the best tactical choice. It is the choice that Kafka will be driven by his own sentiments to make. And so there's either going to have to be a third mitigating factor to complicate the decision, or the next chapter is going to take a turn that we can't predict. Maybe something to do with Reno, who after all is still out there with his super weapon unused so far as we know. So it's kind of the obvious shonen beat would be for Kafka to face that choice, defend his friend or defend the city. But there's so much stacked up in him needing to get to Mina, both from a technical, tactical perspective for the good of the city, that it wouldn't make a very good choice. I mean, the answer is just so obvious. But what do you think, my wonderful viewers? Did you enjoy the blast after blast of emotional impact of this chapter? Or are you frustrated because nothing really happened? Please leave a comment below telling me what you think and feel. Hit that like and subscribe button, and peace out, my wonderful viewers. Do you love awesome science fiction books? Of course you do. If you check out the links below the video, you can get yourself a copy of Comedy or Tragedy. Humans Are Weird. I have the data. Humans Are Weird. We took a vote, and Humans Are Weird, Let's Work It Out are the 3 comedy short story books available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo by Rakuten, Google Play. There's even some copies at Powell's Books, the famous used bookstore in Portland, Oregon. Dying Embers, dragons, aliens, and things that go boom in the night, and soon Flying Sparks, more dramatic traditional science fiction novels, are also available at Amazon. Flying Sparks is still on the pre-order page. If you want a copy, you can email me by contacting the website to pre-order yourself a copy. It's still being edited. So check out the links below the video to get yourself a copy of some wonderful science fiction.